Having brewed so many German beers recently, I'm beginning to pick up a bit of the language, like Leicht means light, Helles means bright, and today's beer, Altbier, well, Alt means old. I'll tell you why it's called that when we brew one up today, and we're also going to revisit a better way to get beer into kegs. Roll the intro. Hi, I'm Martin Keane and I'm taking the Homebrew Challenge to brew 99 beer styles. Today's beer is Altbier. Now I'm told if you go to Düsseldorf Germany and order a beer, you're most likely to get an Altbier. Now Alt, as I said, means old, and that refers to the yeast, the fact that this uses the older style yeast of top fermenting ale yeast. Now, an alt beer is kind of an interesting style to brew because it has a bit of everything. It's made with light malts and also darker crystal malts. It's brewed as an ale, but it has the clean tastes of a lager. So this is going to be an interesting one to brew up. Now, I have here the grist for what I'm using. This consists of 9 pounds of German Pilsner malt, and then 1 pound of Munich 10. That makes up the base malts. Then for the specialty malts, I have 4 ounces each of Caramunich I, and then Chocolate Malt for the colour.
What you'd say to make me laugh is a time and place I can't get back in an hourglass. I cannot turn upside down. Flashes of lightning.
Mashing in here at 152 Fahrenheit for about 60 minutes, looking to get to a pre-boil gravity of 1044. Today's brew day started at 5:30 a.m, but we brew when we can, right? Fortunately, I've got a pour of nitro cold brew coffee here to wake me up. Cue the gratuitous nitro cascading effect montage. So smooth. Now, one of my favorite things about posting videos as I've brewed each one of these beers is the feedback that I've got in the comment section. I've learned all sorts of stuff. Here's one.
Bleeding it out through the heart.
Okay, not everyone's a winner, but I have learned a whole lot of hints and tips through these comments. Take, for example, my video about packaging in kegs. I was looking at a way to do that better to reduce cold side oxidation. If you're doing pressurized transfers, I'd love to hear how you're doing it. Well, I got a ton of good feedback on that. Let's try one of those ideas now. So basically the issue here is I've got this fermenter and it's full of beer and CO2. And I'm racking that beer into this keg, and this keg is filled with nothing but air. And what I was looking for is a solution that would eliminate the air and just make sure that when I'm transferring from this vessel to this one, the only thing that's transferring is beer and CO2. Now, here are the tools I'm going to use to do this. So first of all, I'm going to fill a keg right to the top with water and star san. And then I'm going to pump out the water from that keg into a second keg using CO2. So to do that, I have this bit of tubing here. I'm going to put a liquid out connector onto each end. And this is how I'm going to get the water from one keg to the other. So I've set my CO2 regulator to just a couple of PSI of pressure, and that's connected to my keg that's full of star san. And then coming from the outpost here, we have this connected to a second keg, and water is now transferring through here. And then as I pump the water in, the air that's originally in this keg needs to come out. So I have a gas connector here on this gas post just to let the air out. So this is now filling with CO2 and draining the water and star sand, and this is filling with the water from that keg. Okay, I guess that's done then. So what that's left me with is a keg full of CO2. Now as I start pumping beer into that keg, the CO2 that's in there's got to go somewhere, and I'm going to send it back into the fermenter. Now I'm going to do that by using this little silicone tube here, and this tube is going to fit into the top of my brew bucket, and this side is going to connect to the gas outpost on my keg. So I'll screw this on. So this keg now is completely empty of liquid. It's just full of a little bit of CO2 under light pressure. So now I'm going to connect the fermenter to the outpost here, and then the gas post is going to connect here, and I'm going to put this back into the bucket and then start the beer flowing. So now beer is flowing out of the brew bucket through this tube here into the keg. As the beer enters the keg, CO2 is displaced. The CO2 is coming out of this gas post back into the brew bucket. We've got a closed system here. Now I have no real way of checking if this has worked or not, other than just to sort of check on the taste and the shelf life of the beer over time. But it makes sense to me that this is going to reduce the amount of oxygen that's getting into my keg. And thank you so much to everybody who left a comment along those lines. This is the method I'm going to use going forward now.
I don't know about me, but I know about you, and I got something to say. I get you with you, and it's got
For the hops, any kind of clean bittering hop will do. I am using Perle hops. I have got 1.75 ounces of that to get me to an IBU of 37. Then with 15 minutes to go, I am going to add in 0.75 ounces of Tettnang hops. It's time for the Perle to go in now. The beer's come out with an original gravity of 1052, which is what I'm looking for. We're going to use ale yeast, but kind of ferment closer to lager temperatures. So I have here WLP 029, that's German ale yeast, and I'm going to ferment it at 60 Fahrenheit. All right, that's it. 8:45, time for breakfast. It's tasting time. I'm here with Brian. Brian, welcome.
Thank you.
So the quick notes about this beer, this came out as a 5.6% beer. The final gravity was 1009. Now, Brian, you're a home brewer as well, and
Yes.
you mentioned that you've brewed this style before.
Yes. It's not a real hoppy beer. I think it has a little bit of sweetness to it. Nice malty body.
Let's see if this beer matches all of those characteristics.
Okay.
So yeah, so first of all, let's take a look at the color. What do you think about the color for this one?
That's a nice kind of a amber reddish color.
Yes. Okay, how about the aroma?
Malty, a little bit of sweetness.
Yeah, hopefully that's on point. So let's give it a taste and see if this matches your malty and sweet characteristics for this
right.
this style of beer. Cheers.
It's very good. Similar to the aroma, malty, just a little bit of sweetness to it.
So you've brewed a couple of these. This is the style you enjoy?
Maybe one or two. This was one that I think I had at a friend's house and I liked it, so I thought, oh, I'll try brewing that.
All right, well, I'm glad you enjoyed the beer, and
Yep.
cheers.
Yep. Thanks for inviting me.